Okay, well, listen, Andy, thank you for joining us today and for agreeing to take part in this webinar. I think the idea really is there's so many things happening at the moment, as you know, and obviously there's unprecedented times that we're living in obviously you're at home there in Austria. I'm obviously here at home in Madrid, and we have a little bit of time to kind of catch up and talk about what's happening in the world of sales and marketing. So I thought I'd start up and ask you a question. Actually, we're living through these absolutely extraordinary times at the moment. What do you think you've learned over the last few weeks, sitting there at home and obviously talking to your clients?
So I think I'll break it down into two areas. I think what I've learned from myself is that you need to be super flexible in terms of what your approach is. So it's funny, a couple of weeks ago, the team had reached out to me and said, hey, can we look at the priorities for Q2 because it's coming up? And I said, yeah, of course. We've had a busy couple of months in any case. And I said, well, I had Q2 in the focus, but let's start talking Q2, and I typically like to have a plan and a strategy for the entirety of the year, if not for a half. But right now it's okay, take that initial strategy that I've implemented or that the team has implemented and throw that out the window and start just jumping from thing to thing, just being okay, what's going to work best now? Because the situation is changing overnight almost. I don't know what's going to be good next week in comparison to what's good this week from a marketing perspective and what people are interested in. But we've been adapting very quickly, I would say. The team probably love me and hate me for it. They've turned into somewhat of superstars within the organization because of the content and the things that they're pushing out at the moment. But at the same time, it's turned very knee-jerky reactions to things, and I mean, okay, we need to focus on this now, which can be challenging, right? But luckily enough, basically everything that we've done has worked.
Yeah.
So that's, looking at it that way, when you look in hindsight, the team are pretty happy with how things have been performing. So we're happy there. For our customers' perspective, it's tough. Nobody has been unaffected by this crisis. And if anybody has appeared to be unaffected, it would be somebody like pharma companies, for example. However, they will be affected. I'm pretty certain that the initial wave of revenue that they've seen over the past weeks are due to people going and filling their shopping baskets full of medication. And that will slow down, obviously. So nobody's safe from it, let's say. There's certain industries which are somewhat safer. But in terms of our customer base, you've got a couple of different impressions, I would say, of what people have. I think I've talked to some people where they're okay, we need to pull back now. We need to batten down the hatches, wait until this passes, and then we'll start spending again and doing different things again. And then you've got the opposite, who are you know what, we're going to go harder and faster now to try to get in front of as many people as possible, and really, start making ourselves a name in the market while other people might be a bit afraid to, right? So you've got those two extremes, sort of I haven't come across anybody that's sort of in the middle. It's still doing a lot of things and, but being sort of wary of spending and so on. It's it's either you go one way or the other. Now for our customer base, I think from a Leadfeeder perspective, what we're seeing is people are seeing the value in the product, especially if they're on that side of maybe not wanting to push extra cash out, because I'm not sure spending anyway is the right thing at the moment. Even for our own strategy, we're not spending a huge amount of money at the moment. A lot of the stuff that we're doing is organic. But from what we're seeing, it's similar for companies that we're working with, that they'd be pushing out a lot of content and different things, getting people to digest that content. And then also understanding, okay, who's visiting the site from which companies, right? Which companies are visiting? How often are they visiting? What is the content that they are digesting? Is there any type of buying signals or intent data that I can see from the companies that are visiting? So at the moment, it's obviously people are digesting a lot of content, but then you also want to be able to see, okay, which companies are the ones that are looking at my pricing, for example.
Yeah.
Or doing a bit of a deeper dive into the integrations that we have to offer, or doing a bit of a deeper dive into our product features, right? So you want to be able to separate both of those. And through using Leadfeeder, you can do that. So you can say, okay, right now as a sales team, I don't really want to be following up with people that are heavily digesting our blog posts, but I will be interested in seeing people that are heavily digesting the blog posts, plus showing other intent signals such as, hey, look at this pricing page here. Hey, they've looked at this particular product feature, etc. You know?
Yeah. So you're looking for those kind of sales triggers, are you?
Yeah. So like we can set up automations for the sales team, or the sales team can set it up themselves so that they get those people that would do, for example, come and visit 5 blog posts and then afterwards look at a product page or look at a pricing page, and then send an email notification to the salesperson that owns that account, or send a Slack notification or something, some form of notification to the sales team to say, hey, these ones are people that you should probably be following up with. Here's why and what they've been looking at.
Yeah. And interestingly, linked to that point, there's obviously been a lot of talk on LinkedIn, which we're obviously on all the time and use all the time, talking about maybe now isn't the time to sell. What's your take on that? I mean, where are you sitting at the moment in that kind of debate?
So look, I'm a marketer wearing a salesperson's hat, right? Or vice versa. Okay. So like I've got sales experience myself. I've been in sales roles. I've been an SDR for a number of years, and I've also done account management as well. So like I've got the experience on both sides. My experience generally, regardless of what the situation is right now, like the best pitch is no pitch at all. Okay. Like that's by far always the rule of thumb that I use. So I'd never anyway go into anything that we're doing from a marketing perspective in the fact being like, we need to be really product heavy here so people see the product features and they want to buy immediately. Okay. At the moment, you need to be particularly careful of that because people don't want it. You're just going to piss people off. And what you should be doing now is looking to build long-term relationships and long-term connections. I think the best way to do that is to help people right now. So people are running around with their heads on fire, not knowing what to do next. What should my next step in the strategy be? I don't know, but I can tell you what's working for us. And I can lift up the bonnet and show you, okay, what's happening in the engine to show you, okay, this is working pretty well. This is not working very well. I think we just need to be sharing ideas with others to help them better their businesses, and not just from what we can offer from a product perspective ourselves. So like, if you manage to do that, people will, when it comes to the time of people wanting to, or being able to put their hand in their pocket to buy, they will consider you, and they will consider you ahead of the rest.
Yeah. And are you seeing, with regards to sales and marketing teams there, and indeed with the clients that you work with, how are you seeing that they're kind of coming together now as a group? Because everyone talks about sales, marketing alignment, etc. But are you seeing any change in that dynamic in the last couple of weeks or months?
So I think that the change in dynamic has been constantly changing over the past years. I think the sales and marketing efforts are coming closer together. Now, I'm probably a bad person to ask this to because one of my core focuses is aligning marketing and sales. So I'd always start off with, whenever I, speak or join an organization, or whenever I work together with an organization, whatever it might be, I'd always ask, okay, what are your sales targets? And what can marketing give back to those sales targets? So that's what I'll come up with whoever's responsible for revenue. So at Leadfeeder, it's our CRO, Yako.
Yeah.
So like with myself and Yako own the revenue targets, okay? And like, we can't be misaligned if we both own the same target, So I'd say from our perspective is that, like, if you tie everything back to revenue, you're ultimately going to have to be aligned with sales. Right. And that's something that my team are starting to notice because I brought that focus in. And generally at the moment, I see like salespeople are much more willing or have the time to really push out marketing content more than they've ever, because they're I don't want to use the word desperate, but I think they're looking for more ways in which to break down some doors or to break down some barriers to entry into prospects right now. And any sort of ammunition that you can give them, they're more willing to accept. So I'm seeing that as a big positive at the moment, to be honest with you. Like, sales and marketing are really one-on-one alignment.
So do you see the fact that obviously now events are now completely disappeared from the calendar? You think that's actually now making salespeople think a little bit more with more imagination about what to do and how to engage?
Yeah, I've seen an interesting post on LinkedIn today saying that salespeople are now the new marketers, in that they're the ones that they're like a next wave of marketers that come in and provide the message, and they should be helping share the message through their voice and through how their outreach is. I mean, that's always been the case. I think, but now as people are digesting more on social networks such as LinkedIn, I think it becomes even more important that, you know, sales are pushing the market or pushing a message rather than, you know, rather than a very heavy sales push. I think from an events perspective and that, it's hard to say really, but there's going to be an interesting trend coming with these digital events. I still think that sales are still going to manage to get quite a bit of pipeline through events, but they're going to be digital. So I'm seeing like the bigger events move onto a digital platform. So let's take, for example, SaaS Stock. We're supposed to push forward with an offline event in June in San Francisco for 3,000 people or so, maybe more. But I know that now they've moved that to online. So Alex, their CEO and founder, decided a couple of weeks ago that he said, okay, look, this isn't going to happen. We need to plan for something else. So he's brought it to digital. The Adobe Summit as well has been brought to digital. So like, I think if we were in a situation where you had the choice to either go to an offline or an online event, I think everybody would rather go to the offline event rather than the online one. But now that we're living in a world where there's no choice, like either you go there and you make the best out of it, or you don't go and you don't get the pipeline, perhaps, right? That's putting us in a situation where, hey, this is the only means by which we can do this. Therefore, it should work. Why wouldn't it work? If people are there to digest the same information as they would be if they were on the ground somewhere, then, you know, it makes it very interesting. And I think at the same time as well from these events, like you won't have people stopping by a booth just to grab I don't know, swag, like to grab a t-shirt or a pair of socks or whatever you're giving out at your booth. Now you've got people like stopping by and you've got almost a gatekeeper. So I spoke with SaaS Stock yesterday and they said, well, included in your package, you've got a gatekeeper who's going to review the people that want to speak with you. And if they don't fulfill the criteria, then you don't need to speak to them. So I was like, okay, that's obviously then I'm only getting leads into my queue, which are of interest to me that I can have good conversations with, right? Then you've got the next level in that as well, where it's actually from an attribution perspective, there's nothing dropping through any cracks, I'd say. So if somebody sees your brand there and they're like, oh, what do Leadfeeder do as an example? They can click through directly to our website from the event and have a bit of a look around. And we can track that all the way through. Even using Leadfeeder, we can see that they came from that specific event. Therefore, I wouldn't get that with an offline event. If somebody had come to my site, like they walk past our booth and an hour later say, oh yeah, I've seen Leadfeeder or whatever, and they check out our website, you're never going to know where they came from. So it's an interesting concept. We'll see how it goes.
It'll also be interesting to see, Andy, what happens, you know, once we're actually through this at the other side, whether or not we're back to, you know, normality in terms of events, or whether there's going to be a complete change in strategy and companies actually don't, you know, invest how they have done until now.
It depends how it goes with the digital side of things. I envisage that it will probably be both for a while, right? It depends how long this goes on for. Like if this goes on until the end of the year, we won't have any events for the rest of 2020. The question will be then, how will people be feeling about going to public spaces coming into 21 and 2022? Who knows? You know, like that would be the thing where people might, like, it might affect the attendee rate because people just don't want to be in a crowded space as much as they used to be.
Another factor as well. So listen, just changing a little bit tact.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Leadfeeder. Tell us something about Leadfeeder that maybe people don't necessarily know.
So Leadfeeder was founded in Helsinki by our founder, Pekka. And Pekka had a company prior to it, which was an analytics company called Snoopy. They've grown the company as a remote company, which is probably something that a lot of people don't know. So for us right now, during these times, we're a company of about 85 people. And I think 15 or 20 of those guys are based in Helsinki. And the only people that have been affected somewhat by this, you know, change in terms of having to work remotely were those 15 to 20 people in Helsinki. With everybody else, the 60 odd people all over the world, business as usual.
Yeah.
So that's been very, very helpful and very interesting over the past couple of weeks, just to hear other people's pain points from the remote working perspective. I think, yeah, so from a Leadfeeder perspective, there's that. And in terms of how many people we work with, so we've got two different types of customers. So we have premium users and freemium users, let's say. So our premium users, we have over 5,000 paying customers. And then our freemium users, we have about 15, 20,000. So it depends on how many leads we recognize for you per month, right? And based off of that, then you can decide on the package. Yeah, so like across our overall user base, so in terms of individuals using the product, we have close to 45,000 people using the product. So a massive user base, actually.
What's that growing at per month now?
So it's growing in terms of the individual users growing at the moment. I'm just trying to think of based on the account growth. So we typically see probably like about 10 users per account, and we grow probably by, in terms of premium accounts per month, we're looking at about 300 premium accounts a month plus that are closing. So do the math there. You're looking at about between 3,000 to 5,000 users a month we'd be growing at.
Yeah. And so we've obviously spoke previously and talked about data and how your take on data. You call this first party anonymous data.
So first party intent data, yeah.
Yeah, talk about a little bit about how that works and how you see that playing out.
Okay. So like Leadfeeder is not going to be the tool that will do everything for you from a marketing or sales effort, right? It does a very specific thing and it does it very, very well. Okay. And that's what you just touched on, is this first party intent data and like de-anonymizing the companies which are visiting your site. Typically, most marketing organizations, not all, but most, will have some sort of marketing automation tool which will do some recognition of the individuals based on people filling out forms. So if you drive typically on any website or any B2B website, let's say you should be aiming towards a conversion rate of 2%. So conversion rate being visitor to actually giving you your details, like 2%. And then like you have like good, well-performing companies will have like 3%, and then like above 3%, like 5% or something like that is very, very good, right? That's across the board. It's like including things like paid and organic and all different things. Like obviously conversion rates differ depending on channel, etc. But overall, if you're looking at 2+%, 2 is like the benchmark, and then anything above 2, 3, 5 or whatever is very, very good, right? Now, it's essentially what we're doing. We're the other side of that, where we're like, okay, well, you're leaving probably like, let's say, best case scenario, 95% of your traffic on the table, okay? So 95% of that traffic is certainly interesting. Well, okay, let's say 50% of that is nonsense, right? It's people that you're not interested in. But the other 50%, or maybe even 25%, could be things that are of interest to you as a business that you didn't even know were visiting. Yeah. So as a sales org, and even a marketing org, so let's start with the sales user, in terms of being able to see that information and see exactly which companies have been visiting, how often they've been visiting, what pages they've visited, how long they stayed on the site, what was the referring channel, gather contact information from full contact to be able to see which roles you primarily focus on, send messages via the platform as well, so email, LinkedIn, etc. To have like that all in one platform and be able to see it right in front of your face is very helpful. From a marketing perspective, especially if you're doing things like account-based marketing campaigns, you would be interested to see, okay, what type of content is driving those tier 1 accounts, like those must-win accounts, okay? So you'll have, typically what you'll have is, if you wanted to use it against your account-based marketing efforts, you could create a custom feed which is the filter on it is based off of your whatever's in your total addressable market. Then you can tier it out. So let's say for us, we've got 4 tiers, like, so based on revenue tiers, okay? And we say like the top line revenue ones, the enterprise accounts are tier 1s, okay? So what I'll do is then I'll create a list of tier 1s or a custom feed of tier 1s. And anytime that one of those tier 1s comes to the site, my sales team will get pinged, and so will my marketing team. My marketing team will see which content they're interacting with so that I can go ahead and create more of that type of content. The digital team will also see, okay, what channel drove that specific company. So I can go and double down on that on that channel as well. So it's killing a couple of birds with the one stone there, really.
So you've seen with your customers as well that they're using Leadfeeder as a key component of their ABM strategy.
Yeah. So we spoke about this before in terms of my opinion on ABM. So I've been doing ABM for a couple of years now, and my opinion from speaking with customers of ours, as well as also speaking with friends and stuff that are trying to run ABM campaigns, is that people are typically skipping the first basic steps, right? So like they're going and investing a ton of cash into larger ABM platforms, okay? So I'm not going to say hundreds of thousands, but definitely tens of thousands a year, without getting the basics right, okay? So with Leadfeeder, it's a minimal investment, and if you can get the basics right there's certain things that you can do there in order to get your ABM efforts off the ground, right? And that being one piece is like understanding whenever one of those companies from any one of your tiers comes to the site, make sure that they're getting a follow-up and make sure you understand exactly what they're interacting with. So it plays a role within the ABM piece, but it's not the full ABM piece. So you need to have execution channels, you need to have different pieces in there, your marketing automation system, etc. But Leadfeeder does slot into the MarTech stack when it comes to ABM.
Yeah. And talking about obviously the current circumstances, how do you see Leadfeeder's marketing strategy? How has that changed, or how do you see it changing in light of where we are at the moment?
So what I've told the team is that we'll keep doing certain things that we know are working. So one example is webinars. So we're doing currently a webinar a week, and that started very like randomly, I would say. So let's say that I think it was the 12th of March was the day that Donald Trump started putting controls at borders, so that people were trying to get out of the US that weren't from the US, and people were finding it difficult to get into the US. So from that day onwards, I'd say like I started thinking, and we started thinking as a team, okay, what can we be doing a little bit differently? On that Saturday, which was the 14th, I was texting Alex Ollie, who's one of the founders of a company called ReachDesk. And he was actually in New York at the time. He was texting me from JFK. And I just asked him, hey, how you guys getting on? Like that particular week was slow. It was a bit of a slog that week. And they said, yeah, it's a bit of an up and down one. He was like, as he said, he was trying to get out of New York unexpectedly. And then he just said, well, should we do another webinar? Because we did a webinar at Christmas, on account-based marketing. And I said, well, yeah, I think it's a good idea. Let's give it a shot. So that was a Saturday night. And then by the Monday, we had we'd spoken about it on Monday after we got back to the UK, and by Monday evening we'd launched, and then come Thursday when we were doing the webinar, we had 700 attendees or 700 registrations, so like my thought off of that was, okay, well, that's a 3-day effort, not massive effort, but an effort nonetheless. So we managed to get that amount of attendees on. The Friday, I sat with the team first thing in the morning. I was like, okay, which webinar are we doing next week? And we did the same thing again. And we had great success last week. Following again on Friday, what webinar are we going to do next week, guys? So this week, and we just launched it yesterday in the past 24 hours. Like it's already, at the last I checked there, it's probably around 650 registrations in the space of 24 hours. So webinars are definitely something I'm going to keep on top of for the next couple of weeks. I inevitably see that webinars will start to taper off at some point. That's for sure. Like it's not going to last forever, but I'll stick on top of it whilst it does. For the next couple of weeks as well, we're also going to be focusing on content which is helpful to people, helping people with sales follow-up. So how do you do sales follow-ups at the moment? In an empathetic but also a meaningful way that people will remember you, things like that. What I'm seeing from some of our competitors is that they've, and this I actually don't mean this in any means badly, but I think they've missed the boat slightly in terms of what they're doing. I've seen one specific one, they'll remain nameless, but they've got on the boat with the webinars, which is good, but the topic is in no means related to what's happening in the world around us at the moment. So people aren't interested, it's at the top of everybody's mind. So whilst that stays at the top of everybody's mind, they're going to keep on talking about it because that's what people want to hear.
So it sounds like, agility, which is a term that I've seen a lot, and we talk about a lot inside our business at Strategic, is how, being as agile as possible, really, and moving quite quickly. And it sounds like that's obviously what's kind of triggered somewhat the success of these webinars.
For sure, for sure. Like agility, it's funny. I've worked in tech now for 6 years or so, and anytime you mention the word agility to a marketing team, they're like, "Oh dear, please don't say that word," because you have certain CMOs that would say we need to be an agile marketing team, and what that means is that there's zero structure and we just run around with our heads on fire all the time. But in this specific situation right now, I fully agree with you, Declan, that it needs to be. We need to be agile. We need to be able to move quickly based off what's happening in the world around us, for sure.
Yeah. And obviously the feedback, I was on one of your webinars last week, and obviously you can learn an awful lot for the engagement and of the questions that people are posing you. And that just turns into great content for the next webinar or the next blog or the next whatever, right?
Exactly.
Just a quick one. You're obviously there sitting at home in Austria. I'm sitting at home here in Madrid. How do you think this whole, remote working is that, with your customers? I mean, are you seeing any change in their behavior? And I mean, going back to how Leadfeeder works and how the technology works behind it, are you seeing anything there? Any insights?
So in terms of how the technology works, now a couple of people have risen their concerns around it, because obviously we recognize based off IP addresses of companies. So we have technology in place that enables us to recognize even if they're working off a home IP. So there's a couple of things that we're working on as well to even better that, to just really foolproof it. Like you'll see with the majority of larger organizations initially anyway, like as a one precautionary thing, it's just to understand that what's working in the background a little bit. Like a lot of people will be working off a VPN in any case, which is the easiest way for us to recognize. But then there's also other databases that we're working with, which have recognized individuals based on the home network, plus when they do come onto another network. So we have that in a database. So it matches the two together, and it basically then shows us which company that is. So that's not a concern. So it's been a concern of some customers, but we haven't seen a drop in leads or the companies that are visiting. And anybody that's raised it with us, we've been able to explain, okay, what's happening in the background in order to make sure that that's not going to be the case. So,
yeah. And so, just finally, obviously, you've touched on a lot of the kind of tips in terms of what you recommend people should be doing at the moment. But finally, if a company is out there is looking to build pipeline at the moment, and you've said obviously that sales is going to be difficult, right? For some, I mean, sales will happen. People are buying, people are selling. Yeah. But what pipeline seems to be quite key at the moment, building relationships, building pipeline, and then we'll see what happens. But what kind of things would you say are the things that people should be looking at the moment?
So from my perspective, what I see working is that I've even reached out to our sales team on this. There's certain little things that you can be doing, right? So if you pick up the phone to somebody that you've been in a buying cycle with already, or they're an opportunity, don't go in there trying to do a hard sell. Ask them how they're doing, right? So this is the first time in our lifetime for sure that everybody's been in the same situation. The whole world is in the same situation now. So this is a great opportunity in the fact that everybody has a connection point. Yeah. There's some frame of reference which everybody has in front of them right now, and that's what's happening around the world. So when you're speaking with people, bear that in mind. That should always be the case to know that you're speaking to a person at the end of the line, but now more so than ever. So you don't know what's happening in people's worlds. They could have, they're definitely going to be working from home. They may have kids running around. They may have dogs barking in the background. There's all of the challenges that you probably have that they also have. So start off with that. So connect to them on a human level, and you'll start building that connection, like I've had some real disasters over the past week in terms of people doing outreach to me. And I'm just thinking, how difficult can it be? So I'll give you one example. I got an email from a travel agency in the UK that was offering me, the email started off with, "Hi, Andy, it was great speaking with you a couple of minutes ago. Here's a list of hotels that you wanted to have for the event." I can't remember which event it is. It's some marketing event taking place in August. And I got a list of hotels in London, with prices. And she said, "Okay, let me know when you want to book." So I just wrote back saying, "Well, first of all, I don't think we spoke, unless there's another Andy Culligan working at Leadfeeder that I don't know about. And second of all, I don't think I'll be investing in any hotel rooms for an event that's going to happen in August right now, And that was an approach from her. She thought, oh, maybe it might be cheeky or cute to do it that way and I'll get back. Yeah. But not at all. Like, there's a wrong approach. So from my perspective, what I've gotten feedback from on the sales team is the empathetic piece, but also reach out in a different way than what you'd normally be doing. The fact that you're creating a deeper connection, it means that people are happy to be more personal. So, for example, WhatsApp is working pretty well. So if you want to ping somebody a quick WhatsApp message, hey, how's it going? Send them like a picture of some sort, funny picture. Like, all this stuff is working because we're connecting more on the personal level. So it may be that you may struggle to close in the next couple of weeks, but when people start getting back to normal, and people are starting to get back to normal, the more people that you've created that personal connection with, the more likely they're going to put their hand in their pocket.
Yeah. No, it's funny you say that, because on a personal level, I've been obviously connecting with people and, through LinkedIn and other channels, and just sending them a note to see how they are really, and with no other precondition than just to be quite human, as you said. And I think we kind of forget, and we have forgotten with all this technology, that at the end of the day, it is human on human, right?
Yeah.
And we've kind of used automation and other tools to kind of speed up the process and to make them process more agile. But in effect, we've actually been taking away what is the essence of a relationship and a commercial relationship, which is two people transacting on a very personal level.
Exactly. I mean, look, we're always so focused on numbers, and that goes, like, I'm as guilty of it as everybody. From a sales perspective, more so than any other department. But like, I've measured teams on how many phone calls they've made, how many emails they've sent, how many touch points they're getting on LinkedIn. All of these different things I've measured people's performance on. So if they're not delivering up down the bottom of the funnel and creating opportunities, there must be something wrong up the top. Therefore, they're maybe not making enough phone calls. Yeah. Hey, maybe they're not sending enough emails. And with that type of approach, what you're doing is you're forgetting that the people on the other end of that communication are human. So like, I've in the past been guilty of it, treating people like numbers. Okay, the more we churn out, the more we're going to get back. That sort of view on things. Now, obviously, it's still important to keep the numbers up, but at the same time, I think we need to be more wary than ever that when we pick up the phone, we're actually picking up the phone to another human being.
Yeah. And I think that's a great way to end this conversation, Andy. Andy, thanks so much for taking part today. Lovely to talk to you again. Keep safe there in Austria, and we'll talk very soon.
Thanks, mate. You too.
Thanks.